There is already plenty of hype for the upcoming Avengers Doomsday and of course Secret Wars after it. Now, a report that's been circling around for a while is that Avengers Secret Wars is going to split into two parts to release an Avengers film on the 20th anniversary of the MCU, which started with Iron Man. And a brand new report has landed that Avengers Secret Wars will now be part 1 and part 2, with the second part hitting in 2028. So of course, Marvel surprised everybody at last year's San Diego Comic-Con with some pretty major announcements. Chief among these was, of course, the fact that Avengers: The Kang Dynasty was no more. Now, of course, I don't think this came as much of a surprise to anybody because of the legal troubles that the Kang actor Jonathan Majors found himself in. And, of course, there was still a lot of issues with trying to figure out what to do with Kang. Do you recast him? Do we just abandon the story because, well, it wasn't working for us and we want to go in a different direction and whatnot? And ultimately, we know now, with hindsight, what the end result was. The end result was to not mention Kang at all, come out on stage and announce Avengers Secret Wars, with the new prequel being Avengers Doomsday taking over for the Kang Dynasty, and the return of Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom. Which brings us to Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. So of course, most of you know that Avengers Doomsday is right now in production in London with plenty of set photo leaks. Now, there are some reports that these sets will be reused for Avengers Secret Wars as well, and it would make sense considering that on the set of Avengers Doomsday, we are seeing what looks like elements of Battleworld and massive incursions of universes smashing into one another, causing total destruction. Among these, we can see the Exiles from What If. We can see the X-Men from their own universe. We got the Avengers campus or Avengers Tower. We don't fully know. We got some sort of giant spaceship. We got Sentinels. The whole gamut of, hey, look at the multiverse and what's familiar, you're going to see elements of that here. Now, of course, most of us suspect that Avengers Secret Wars is going to be a bigger film than Avengers Doomsday because it has to play off of everything set up in the former. Much like Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, there was a lot to pay off of what was built up, which then brings us to talk a little bit more about Avengers Secret Wars. So as rumors suggested, and these go back a couple of years, that Secret Wars, they always wanted and intended to reveal that this was a two-part film. Now, what adds a little bit more fuel to this is the fact that they talked about how Secret Wars is much bigger than just one film. Now, a lot of people just consider what they were saying as, well, yeah, Secret Wars is part Doomsday or Kang Dynasty at the time, but I don't honestly think that that's the entire picture, which then brings us to some of the other listings we saw before the last couple of San Diego Comic-Cons and filings and trademarks from Marvel Studios, which bring us into a very interesting position, which reveals to us that at one point there was a listing for another Avengers film, which at the time was reportedly Avengers Forever, set to release on the 20th anniversary of the MCU and Iron Man. Now, this would have been if Avengers Secret Wars had its release date when it was originally intended. But now what we're talking about is that we are going to get 3 Avengers films in the span of 3 years, which brings us to Avengers Forever. So what exactly is Avengers Forever? Well, reportedly, it was a film that brings back all the original Avengers in a scaled-down version of a multiverse film that would essentially serve as sort of a epilogue, you could say, to the MCU and what happens with Secret Wars, where it is now a rebooted timeline. This was like the final hurrah before we get into what is the soft reboot. You know, it was like one final adventure. And this is important because from what we've heard, about Avengers Secret Wars. And if we look at the cast of Avengers Doomsday, which I covered in another video about how that's telling more than anything in regards to, spoilers, that film was essentially, and in this case, Avengers Secret Wars is going to feature all the legacy characters, which is where we get to Avengers Secret Wars Part 2. So here's what's going on. Allegedly, the upcoming Avengers Forever is no longer Avengers Forever. It's just going to be Avengers Secret Wars Part 2. It might have a different name, like Avengers Secret Wars End of Time or something like that, but it's essentially a Part 2. So what's been reported is that when it gets to Part 2, they're essentially taking the ideas of Avengers Forever and expanding Avengers Secret Wars to give us two stories in one. One final giant battle and hurrah for the original Avengers all reuniting, and one where we got the multiverse, Doctor Doom, and everything that they built up off the first Secret Wars, all sort of converging under one film. And that this is going to be like that, 3-hour long epic, just like Secret Wars will be, whereas Avengers Doomsday is going to be about 2.5 or 2 hours and 30 minutes like Infinity War. And this is reportedly being done because during the prep and production, how much stuff they got in motion, they realized we got too much. So why not split the difference? Why not do a two-parter? And why not hit people with 3 Avengers film in a quick manner? One every year from 27, or should I say from 26 to 27 to 28. Now, this could cause burnout, but also with the fact that Marvel Studios has said they're only doing 2 films a year going forward, 3 max, and that's a Sony year, you can see how they can still make this a giant event, especially if the rumors are true that all the films set between Doomsday, Secret Wars, and Secret Wars Part 2 are in fact Battleworld. So if you've been keeping up with the reports from what we have seen and productions ramping up and all the rumors, it looks like we're going to be getting at least 2 to 3 Battleworld films between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars Part 2. These will reportedly be, of course, the upcoming Spider-Man, which is going to slightly tie in but not be a full-on Battleworld film, and then 2 to 3 others are reportedly happening. Among these are 1, World War Hulk, 2, Doctor Strange 3, and 3, Thor, whatever it ends up being. That sounds like it's going super multiverse and time travel-y and Battleworld, where essentially they might just do Battleworld Asgard, I guess. Now, this all would honestly be pretty awesome and impressive. And you can see how, if they were to stretch Secret Wars into a 2-parter, they allow themselves to drop more films in between that get a boost from the Avengers films that makes the box office go up. They literally saw success like this with Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Marvels. So repeating that same pattern would be beneficial for the end result of more box office money. So now we come to the final part, and that's when is this going to be revealed? Well, according to all the reports out there, San Diego Comic-Con this year. Marvel is going. They're expected to have an hour-plus long panel just like last time, and big announcements are expected to be made because this year there is no D23. At least not the size, scope, and scale of D23 that they do, because they do it every 2 years. So effectively what we're looking at right now is a giant blowout of content reveals that's possibly going to surpass last year. And you could see how once they come out and they talk about, hey guys, we just finished shooting Doomsday. We're starting production on Secret Wars in a couple of weeks. And also, let us make a pretty big one more announcement. Look above you. Oh, look. Secret Wars just became Part 1 and Part 2. We'll see you in a couple years. Avengers Forever, walk off stage. You could quite honestly see how Marvel Studios can own the conversation. And another factor in this is that right now, Superman is tracking to be one of the biggest comic book films since Deadpool and Wolverine. which could mean that this film is going to absolutely destroy the recently released Brave New World, which it definitely will, and possibly even Thunderbolts, and both combined. Getting a mindshare of the conversation right there on the same weekend when Fantastic Four is out, because that's when San Diego Comic-Con is, would be beneficial. All eyes on the prize, and hey, why don't you go see Fantastic Four? Because maybe there's a little tease there for the upcoming films, right? Everything is lining itself up, in my opinion, for a perfect storm for Marvel, especially an announcement like this, where you then extend the MCU's, nostalgia ride for another year with Avengers Part 2, but at the same time, you're giving fans more of what they want, which is, again, for better or for worse, nostalgia bait. So now we wait as San Diego Comic-Con is with us at the end of July, which admittedly is not too long to wait, so we'll see you guys for that. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.